probability trading strategy, you're full of crap.
Things aren't working, then that's a quick trip to the poorhouse.
To learn how to drive the beater before you can drive the Lamborghini.
Now you're playing with the house's money.
Wow. You know, Mike, when I first started trading, I really thought that I knew exactly what I was going to do, you know, and how to do it day one. And I was a total dumbass about that, you know. I mean, I was, you know, and it's like, I think so many traders out there, you know, when they first start trading, you know, they fail before they even take their first trade because of what's up here. Well, because of what's up here.
Yeah,
and so what if the very things you believe about trading are actually setting you up to be a loser? And in today's episode, and I think you guys are going to really like this episode, we have our good friend Bobby Campos, who's with us. He's going to expose 3 of the deadliest traps new traders fall into and how to avoid them. So, Mike, be honest. You know, have you fallen into any of these traps?
No, of course not. Never. Actually, yeah, more times than I can count. If I had $1 for every trap that I've fallen into, I would probably own an island somewhere. But yeah, excited to get into it with Bobby. Bobby, thanks for being here with us today.
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This is always fun.
So yeah, because you know, Bobby, I think all 3 of us can remember, you know, when, you know, we tried to figure it out on our own, and you know, we wanted to build our own style. And I've had so many, you know, traders come up to me and says, well, you know, I just don't like your system because, you know, I have to make it my own, or I have to design it to this. And the thing that's really funny about it is they start making quote unquote improvements to the system before they really know what they're doing and what improvements need to be made. And so it's the old issue of they don't know what they don't know. Right
100%, 100%.
So it's funny how, you know, looking back, this cost me a lot of time, money. I blew up 2 accounts and confidence, and it took a lot. And I think because I was so hard-headed in my opinion of myself, thinking that I was, you know, this brilliant person who didn't need all the help, that it actually took me longer to get to the place where I had a winning system and a winning trade. So, but you know, before we break down, each one of these traps, Bobby, we wanted to give you an opportunity to, you know, you're a trader who balances being a husband, a dad, and you know, of a newborn, 5 months old.
Yep.
An air traffic controller. That's one of the things you and I share in common, because I was an air traffic controller in the Navy when I first joined. And but you're working out of what, New York Center?
Yes, New York Center.
Okay, cool. But you still find time to be a CAN SLIM trader. I don't know if you call yourself a CAN SLIM trader.
Yeah, I would definitely.
And which requires structure, consistency. And but you know, you didn't start that way. So why don't you share a little bit about your story, about how you got started in the world of trading, and also all the other stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think I had probably one of the more unorthodox kind of introductions into trading, and the reason being is I had no plans of actually trading. I grew up, and my initial thoughts of the market was it was rigged, and it was just, if you did decide to dabble in that area and you weren't a real true, you know, hedge fund owner or something like that, you're basically just gambling. So my idea was just stay as far away as possible. Prior to being an air traffic controller, though, I worked in a kind of like a sales type of corporate job. And anytime I sat down with any of these big clients and CEOs and managers, they all want to talk, you know, everybody, they want to talk stocks, they want to talk the market. And I just kept finding myself just sitting there with nothing to say because I really had no understanding of the market. Little did I know at the time was most of these people had no understanding of the market either. But, you know, I wanted to learn. And one of my buddies I had worked out with, I kind of voiced this to him, and he said, hey, there's a guy over there that's walking on a treadmill, reading the paper, which I didn't realize at the time was the IBD paper. He trades stocks. Asked him, he could probably help you out. So I asked him and I said, hey, I want to learn some stocks just to be able to talk to my clients. He actually gave me How to Make Money in Stocks, the Matthew Galgani book, the blue book, that small one,
Yeah.
which goes to show you how much faith he had in my reading ability. He gave me the smallest book this and I read that and instantly just said, wow, this makes sense. This is
Right on.
there's something that I could actually execute on. And I went from, I want to just be able to talk about the market with my clients to, I want to figure out how am I going to trade? How can I do this? So me and that guy he said, all right, if you really are interested in trading, we will basically sit down every week. I'll give you some books to read those books, and we'll talk about the market. And that's kind of what got me into CAN SLIM trading. So I didn't really have a lot of other strategies and stuff before, but still had that, misconceptions of the market before I even started trading. And luckily found CAN SLIM pretty early on.
And so, yeah, that's, and I know that, so it's kind of interesting if I understand what you're saying, is that you actually, because you had a mentor,
Yes.
and I know who that is, and you had a mentor that kind of guided you and kept you grounded, where you didn't have to waste a lot of time learning, of kind of figuring it out on your own. I mean, you basically had a pretty good, if you will, a flight path, to touchdown, right?
Yeah.
And so that's totally cool, because it kept you from, I think it helped you stay away from some of the traps that you probably see a lot of other traders, fall into.
100%. Yeah, I kind of got like a little fast track. I condone a lot of those people who have found their way to a strategy, because most people don't even think about strategy. They just get into the market and they just start trading. And that path to just going from, I'm just going to open an account and just start buying, based on myths of the market, is very easy. And then to get from that point to saying, okay, all these people who are very successful traders, they have a strategy that they follow. Getting to the point of even just embracing that fact and trying to find a strategy is a long path. So for the people that go through that and are committed through the whole point, I mean, my hat's off to them, because that's not easy. I got the easy route.
Man, I wish that I had found somebody like that earlier on, because I was that guy that tried to figure out stuff on his own, and it's not pretty. And then there's a lot of stuff that you need to unlearn to start to do things well. So you're in a great spot.
Yeah,
I know. So, well, one of the things, Bobby, that really I find, intriguing and inspiring about your story is that, before we dive into the individual traps that we're going to be talking about, and trust me, folks, these traps are going to basically blow your mind. And we say, do you want to hang around to the third trap? Because the third trap, you're going to be going, I have got to change some things about the way I work in the market. But how do you keep it all balanced, man? I know that, you work in the eaves on some of the, at the center there, more or less newly married, less than 5 years, almost 6 years.
Yeah.
And with a 5-month-old, plus your extra other, running a very popular Discord channel, how do you maintain your balance?
Well, the biggest answer to that question is marrying the right person. That's 100% what that kind of holds everything together. I mean, especially having a 5-month-old, the amount that my wife does to allow me to do all these things is absolutely insane. So I am beyond blessed to have somebody like that supports me in everything I do. And I mean, I do a lot aside from trading, work, like you said, the work hours, night shifts, weird hours, constantly rotating. I surf, I do a lot of running and, physical endeavors and half Ironmans and things like that. And when I'm questioning whether I should do something and I'm talking about it, my wife's normally the one who goes, you have to do it. Just do it. Like, and I feel like it's very rare that you find somebody that, as you constantly putting stuff on your plate, that's putting stuff on their plate, and you're giving yourself almost an out to say, maybe this isn't the right time. They're the one going, she's going, go do it. Like, let's do it. So that's the biggest piece of it.
Yeah. And what's her name?
Christy.
Christy. That's what I thought.
Yes.
And so second question on that, because it sounds like Christy is just, is giving you, I hate to use the term cheerleader, but I mean, she's basically sound like she's got your back.
Always. Complete and utter support in everything that I've ever done. And like, it's like I said, I would have done none of the things I've done in the past, 10 years without, all of her support.
So now the question is, and now folks, you may think I'm straying away from the aspect of trading, but all these pieces go together to make great traders. And so, because how we do anything is how we'll do everything. And so the question, and I'm asking this specifically for Christy. Okay, she's, has your back and all that kind of stuff. What's Bobby Campos doing to become Christy's champion? Ooh,
that's a good
didn't
question.
expect that one, did you?
I did not expect that one. I mean, the big thing is like everything I try to do is really for our family. Whether it's the overtime hours and the hard work and stock trading. I mean, the big piece of that is to set our family up for kind of the future. And just say, anything she needs, especially just support on her end too, just trying to be there for we're basically just trying to be there for each other and everything she does.
Right on.
And I always say we're the type of people where you ask to do something, but the person being asked is always like, you don't have to ask me. If you want to do something, just tell me, we'll make it work. And that's kind of the way that we operate. So, it's not easy. It's hard at times, especially with a 5-month-old. But, we do our best to try to make it work and try to support each other and just, be a cohesive unit together, taking everything on.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so many people, I speak about myself too. Like we're always working on communication. It sounds like you guys have really great communication to be able to support one another like that. And
her communication's a lot better than mine. I'll admit that.
That's fairly typical. Not of just your relationship, but I mean that's for whatever it is. I don't know. It's like some little, I think they just pour this hormone or whatever it is inside some of the ladies' minds, and they just are able to communicate. They're able to empathize and that kind of stuff. Because I know with Michelle, my wife, she is so empathetic towards people, and she has to basically tone me down because I'm of the thinking of just telling people, hey, suck it up, man, get going and all that kind of stuff. And Michelle's going, no, you can't do that. You don't want to tell them to suck it up. You don't know what they're going through. And, and I'm sitting there going, I really don't care what they're going through, Michelle. but then I go, okay. And then I'll have to think about it a little bit. And I go, she's right. I need to tone it down a little bit. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So let's get to the questions. Let's get to these traps. So creating your own style too early. Yeah, Bobby, well, why do you think that so many traders are obsessed with finding their style before they've even learned what works? Kind of like if you were trying to, I don't know, play jazz before you learn the scales.
Yeah. I think it's just, and that like everybody wants it to be theirs. They want to take complete ownership of their success and not be able to turn around and say, oh, I got to where I got because this person 50 years ahead of me came up with the idea and they are the one that like basically taught me how to trade and I'm just executing their strategy. Everybody wants to be the creator of everything. So I think that's a kind of really big piece of it. I could, like me, I think about it, I had a mentor. That mentor put me on a path that set me up with it. Some people have that idea where they don't want to give anybody like, oh, I did it all on my own. I figured it out all on my own. So in order to do that, and especially in today's day and age where the market's been around for so long and there's so many different strategies, successful strategies out there, you know, you find something and then they have to just tweak it somehow to make it that it's mine. Oh, I don't trade that. I do. It's like that, but it's mine. But
so it's like an ego pride kind of thing.
Yeah. And look, I know that's not everybody, but I think when people dig deep and really try to understand why they're doing it, I think that's a big piece of it. They're trying to make it their own.
So, well, were you ever tempted to basically try to blend different strategies, especially as you know, you've been trading for what, 10 years now, approximately?
Almost 8 years.
Almost 8 years. Okay. Yeah. And with the popularity of social media, have you ever been, you know, tempted to, you know, try to blend some of the strategies, the indicators, the advice on Twitter, on X, on the death to all traders Instagram? Because I think, you know, Instagram, I'm sorry, folks, but you're going to get sucked type of information on Instagram when it comes to trading. I mean, there are some good stuff over there. There's some good, you know, content creators about the market, but most of them are the Lamborghini guys.
Yeah,
so
the guys that Peter Brandt loves ranting about on.
Yeah, and I'm almost as old as Peter, so I guess I can rant on that too.
Yeah.
But you know, how did you filter all that stuff out?
It's like one of those things where pretty much everything I try to do in my life, you talk about how you do everything, it's how you do anything. I always am a very disciplined person and kind of obsessive person to sometimes a fault. And I just said, like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to like strictly do this and I'm going to stay focused on completely this. So I guess just my kind of the way I am, my personality in general led me to trying to be as disciplined as possible. And I'd seen it in a lot of other aspects of other people's lives that those disciplined, strict following people tend to, you know, find success. That's not to say that I did not at times try to, oh, what about this or what about that? And start seeing other things, luckily not the Instagram people, but other trading styles, like even successful trading styles to possibly, oh, how can I incorporate this? But then again, social media is great and all these books and everything are great because you do hear about some of these faults from other people. And I'd heard enough about the faults of people turning around, trying to blend stuff and make things work. And it just doesn't work out in the long run. So that was kind of what prevented me, I guess, from really going down that path. But with that being said, I also understand, and a perfect example is as of lately, I have now been trading strict CAN SLIM for so long, and I've done so much performance review. I realize there are areas where I might have to make some adjustments to fit my personality a little bit better. But I also know what adjustments can be made without negatively infecting my trading and where to look to make it kind of mesh well. And a perfect example of that is like looking into kind of like Mark Minervini is a style that I've kind of started to implement a little bit, knowing that they are kind of, you know, cohesive.
Yeah. They dovetail together very nicely. And so, you know, Mike, what about, you know, Mike, how have you adjusted some of your trading, you know, similar to that? Because, you know, like you said, it took you a while to find your system and all that kind of stuff. But I won't say how do you keep your system pure, but, you know, and you know, suppose this is a question back to Bobby, but how do you keep your system on track, you know, so that how do you keep it clean so that, you know, you declutter, or you have to do a reset occasionally on your system to make sure?
Well, I'll answer that while I'm answering. I heard some. I don't know if anybody else heard some feedback, but it sounded like there was some pretty hefty feedback in there with your microphone, Dennis. Just all of a sudden, kind of weird.
Okay. How about now?
That sounds better now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it just way to go. All right. So staying on track. How do you stay on track? How do you make sure that you're not kind of wandering too far off the reservation. 2 words: post-analysis.
Mm.
It's very important. And the way that you're able to do a great post-analysis is by actively journaling. If you
Yeah.
try
Right on.
to do a post-analysis without journaling, then it makes the whole thing very difficult. It almost is like you're kind of grasping at straws. So the way that the most efficient way, right? And so very similar to you, Bobby. Like I would imagine a lot. Like you've got to be very efficient with your process, right, to be able to juggle everything. Me too, because I started out doing all this stuff part-time as well. So get organized with your journaling first. You don't have to like go crazy like trying to journal everything, but try to have a structured way of what you're going to track, and have a process for when you're going to track it. Block out time, and it makes staying on track that much easier, and seeing if you're like what levers need to be pulled that much easier too.
Yeah, right on. So, and which makes that a really good segue, or just a really good time to just, uh, um, help us pay the electricity here, guys. Is Mike covers a lot of that kind of stuff in his book, The Trading Mind Wheel. Did you like that? Was that a pretty good
Thank you.
segue?
That was good. I got mine actually. I don't know if you could. It's kind of right over there. It's kind of there.
Cool.
That one right there.
Oh, there you
So
go.
there it is.
I thought
Anyway,
it was leveling the the bookcase over there.
Yeah, no, great. It's kind of, I find it kind of interesting. Mike's got a bookcase in his background, and then, Bobby, you've got yours, and then I've got mine back there. And I think it's, I've got a lot of, and I've got Mark Minabee's books on audio and all this type of stuff that I love listening to. But, as we wrap up on the first aspect of this, regarding, um, creating your own style too early is one of the challenges I see a lot of traders have. Is they have this idea that, and this may feed to the issue. Can you still hear this? I may have been talking away from the mic. It feeds to the issue probably of, well, I've got to make it, it's got to be mine. Is that, a lot of traders, they are challenged with the understanding that to build a great trading business, I'm going to call it exactly what it is, a business.
Absolutely.
In reality, takes a completely different mentality than to have a full-time job. Because if you try to walk in it with your full-time job mentality, getting paid every 2 weeks a certain amount and all that kind of stuff, it's going to screw you over. It's going to screw you up. And so, so what would your advice be to somebody who, as far as, they want to build a trading business, but they think, so how do they get their mindset and their belief system changed around to saying, oh, wow, I can make a full-time income, but not working full-time? And what are some of the traps they could fall into as they're trying to, go across that territory?
For me or for?
Yeah, that's for you.
Okay. Look, I mean, having a full-time job, and especially with shift work, it's like you come in, you work your shift, and you go home, and then it's off. Like I don't, unless somebody brings it up, I don't really think about work. And again, I don't do this full-time, but trying to treat it as if it's a full-time job in my mind is kind of constantly having those time blocks all throughout the day where you can do what you need to do to manage and run everything from top to bottom. It's not just about placing that trade. It's about doing the performance reviews. It's about expanding your education. It's about making sure that your mind is in a good place when the market's open and when you're making decisions. Really just structuring the same way a CEO would structure their business. He has his calendar and he goes, all right, I get this done here. I get this done here. Oh, I have time here for my lunch. I get this done here. I get this done here. Oh, and I go to dinner with my wife and my family here. Structuring your time is, I think, extremely important, because if you don't, it's very easy to just let a certain aspect of your trading business kind of fall apart. It's very easy when there's a lot going on and you go, I'll do my performance review later. And then later becomes a month, 2 months later, you've now just traded without even looking at what happened last quarter, and could have cost yourself money if you would have just went back and saw maybe some things that you were doing that you could have made changes on. So bringing that almost like CEO mentality and CEO structure to your life, however it fits, whether it's doing it full time like you guys are, or whether it's like myself, fitting that around your day-to-day job, is very important if you're going to be able to manage all the pieces that need to be managed.
Well,
I
like,
think
it sounds like you have like a standard operating procedure for how you're going to run your business, and in addition to that too, that you have business hours. It's going to be from this time to this time. That's when I'm working on it, and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to structure the best way to utilize that block of time, so that way it doesn't bleed into the rest of my life. Is that about right?
Yeah, 100%. And I will also say, just like a bit, Christy, my wife, she used to own a dance studio, and I've seen it secondhand. But anybody who owns a business knows it's not business hours. It's 24/7. It's always on your mind. There's always things happening. Trading, though, is when you have a passion for it and you have so much interest and love and to do it, you do find that, there's times where I sit down on the couch after work and, Christy's sleeping, and I'm not, turning on a movie. I'm turning on something like a show like yours, or, all different things, or reading a book because I want to learn more. I want to, research and do different things. So I think that's a big piece of it too. Like, if you really do want to do this as a full-time, do you have that passion and that drive level to do it? Because too many people think it's this passive type of way to gain income, and they're just going to open an account, make some moves, and make money. And I don't think that type of person has the drive and the want to really do this as a full time, because it's all the time. I think about trading a lot.
Yeah, you're not alone. Once the bug bites you, one of the things that I think can help people in this area is that, one, acquire knowledge. And you mentioned, Bobby, the thing about watching shows like this one, and I highly recommend this show to everybody. No, just but there's other things out there also. But the books you read. And not just on trading, read books like I'm right now going through a complete audio series by Jim Rohn, one of the best guys for self-development that's out there, because even where I'm at in life right now, my objective is to get better in everything. But anyway, acquire the knowledge. And unfortunately, so many people spend all their time acquiring the knowledge, and then it sits there and rots. It basically goes into a stagnant pool. And so the next step is to apply the knowledge. And that's when you start growing the wisdom. That's when you start applying it to the way you trade and all that type of stuff. And to both the mechanics and the mindset. And lastly, is if you are, saying, I want to replace my income trading, recognize that I can, I've replaced my income, and I only spend 4 hours a week doing my trading thing, right? Now, I run my business, which takes time, which keeps me in the market also, but my actual trading process it's all primarily after market hours, okay? And I put in my conditional orders. I do the whole thing that way. And then I do my fire and forget orders, and I'm done. And what happens. And I'm not saying that cavalier, because I have my stop losses in place. I have my profit targets already that are all automatic. But what I have had to do and sometimes struggle with is I have got to find constructive things to fill my time. If I'm only working 4 hours a week on trading, what am I going to do with the rest of the time? And if I don't have a plan for the rest of the time, I think that's where we can slip into bad habits, laziness and all that kind of stuff, and that type of thing. And so, anyway, that's so. Bobby, just as we move on to the next session, just what advice would you give a trader who's feeling overwhelmed trying to find their edge too soon?
Number one would be don't put too much pressure on yourself and understand that it's a much longer journey than you even realize. So, I hear people that are trying to figure out how to handle this market right now to make money in this next couple months or, whatever's going on. Understand that it's a much longer process than that. And, you're not rushing to get into things and figure things out. But look, to be honest, I think one of the best books out there, which I have on my shelf over there, if somebody's trying to find their way and find a strategy, is Market Wizards, because you get this kind of gamut of all different types of strategies and all different thought processes, fundamentals, technicals, commodities, futures, all this stuff. That's a good place to kind of start and just to see, because there is a lot of kind of similarities between people trading completely different markets and completely different styles. And those similarities are what you really need in order to really execute ad trading in any way. So I think that's a good place to start. Then think about, I always say, ask yourself what you want out of trading. Are you somebody that wants, there are people that they want to sit in front of a screen and they want to trade more frequently. And if you give that person some type of long-term strategy, they are not going to be happy. There are people that want to be more removed from the market and they don't want to think about it and they don't want to look at screens and charts. There are people that have all different types of wants out of the market. So I think that's the first question. If you are feeling overwhelmed, is ask yourself, like, what do I want about the market? What do I want out of trading? What do I want my day-to-day to look like? And then kind of use that to project you into a path that there's this proven strategy that kind of can emulate that.
I love that. So, hey, Mike, let's get into the next trap.
You kind of already segued into trap number 2, which was underestimating the time it takes to learn this stuff. So what would you have to say to those people that are telling you that, oh, you just buy my course, I'll have you up and running in 30 days?
Yeah. I always try to relate everything in trading to kind of just stuff that people know on a regular basis in their normal life. And if you look at any other career, accountant, a doctor, a construction worker, anything, there is normally this period, like Dennis, you were saying before, of that gathering of education. And then that is not enough. You go to college and you do even a doctorate in something. That does not mean you can actually do the job. It just means that you probably have a good understanding of the job and how it should be done. Right on. Once you get that education down, you then have to learn how to execute. And that's another level. And I think too many people look at the market because let's face it, it's very, very easily accessible. Pretty much anyone can go right now, open up a trading account, throw some money in it, and buy a stock. It doesn't take much in today's day and age. So the path to entry is so easy. And I think it creates this false sense of, okay, you could just jump into things and it's easy. Where really you got to look at it like any other career. You would never say, oh, I'm going to be a doctor and take somebody's course and then say, okay, in 2 months I can perform brain surgery, or even not even to that extent. Oh, in 2 months I could go build a shed and I have no experience in building. Yeah. Something even on that where it's like, you're not going to say, oh, this guy told me he could teach me how to, build a garage in a week. And you don't really even know how to do basic construction. And that's what I think people need to start getting in their head is it's like any other career. It's like any other job. And I'd argue it's probably harder than many, many others. I mean, I have a fairly complex, stressful job, I would say, as an air traffic controller. And I think trading is much more complex and stressful if you do it the wrong way than that. So Yeah, think about it like any other career and understand that there's an education period where you have to learn, and then there's a period where you have to learn now to execute as well and actually have that hands-on experience before you can do it.
Right on. Yeah, so yeah, Bobby, it's interesting. You know, I've made this claim or said this thing in the past that I used to fly jets off of aircraft carriers, right, at night, and learning how to basically deal with my emotions trading was tougher than that, tougher than that. And you just said the same thing about controlling. You've got the life of hundreds and hundreds, or if not thousands, of people in your hand as you're sitting there at the radar screen, and that brings on a certain level of huge level of stress. But that trading presents like a different kind of stress. Now you can get through it.
Yeah,
you can get through it. And then the other thing you said I thought was really remarkable is, there's really great. One is look for the similarities. Look for the similarities, because if you can find if let's say you're out there trying to build your own system, look for similarities between futures traders, between swing traders, between day traders. And guess what? While each one of those different types of traders will want to be proud of what they do individually, there are elements in each one of them that are, guess what, the same. And I'm talking from, like over 30 years of watching the market and watching different traders. And the last thing you said about education, people gain the education, and sometimes without application, you can have a doctorate, and what good is it? It reminds me of my dad used to always say. He said, just some people are educated past their intelligence.
Yeah, I can definitely say I'm not that person.
I try not to be that person.
Undereducated.
So most traders quit before their breakthrough. They think it should, be fast because of social media makes it look easy, but real traders build reps in their experience. And so, what are some of the ways, things that you do to build your reps, and how long has it taken you?
Honestly, Mike said it perfectly before. The performance review is probably the biggest thing to build your reps, because you're basically getting a chance to retrade that stock by looking back at it and seeing, all right, what did I do? How did that work? If I would have followed my strategy because let's face it, a lot of us, sometimes fall wayside. You look at a trade and you say, I didn't follow my strategy to a T. I did this. I should have did that. Right. So you look at, what did I do? What if I was strict to my strategy? What would have happened? And then if there's something that you were thinking about, maybe it's moving a stop to a different style or changing things slightly up, you can kind of then see, all right, what would have happened if I did this? And then you're doing that on every single one of the trades that you've placed in the last quarter, the last year, or however far back that you're kind of doing.
Sure.
And you're now getting to experience what that trade looks like over and over and over and over again. And just the pure fact that you're looking at those charts is you're gaining information and you're gaining experience, and you're experiencing what things look like, or how the market tends to act when things are going on. It's just all information gathering that is giving you repetitive reps, where if you were the person that just said, place the trade, close the trade out, looked at your P&L and said, okay, that's it. You learned once. By going back and revisiting things, you're learning multiple times, and you're getting those extra reps. And that's why you see the people that do performance reviews, how much faster they get better at trading,
Right.
The only other thing, it kind of like shines like a mirror at yourself too. So it exposes things to yourself that's going to help you to, be able to rethink and go through that again and again and again, and say, like, all right, is this how I would want to handle it again, type of thing. So
yeah,
it's those extra looks at something multiple times.
So what's your thoughts in this area, and any questions for Bobby?
I think that his response is spot on. It's exactly what I would do too. And like we mentioned before, it's important to be able to have it to journal your process, do a post analysis of it. One thing that I think that's good to do as well, in addition to studying your own past trades, build your own model book. Build your own model book. Find your setups. Find the ones that have performed exceedingly well. You could go to O'Neill's book, How to Make Money in Stocks. The first 100 pages of it are all model books. But don't just read what's there. Try to go into your platform. I know that TradingView has a ton of data in it. You could go into there and then mark up the chart yourself. That way, when you're marking it up yourself, you're starting to get that feel. You're starting to put in the reps. And not only that, you're seeing it on your own chart. So that too is training your eye to spot these things later on in real time. History does repeat itself, and putting in those kind of reps are a great way to make sure that you see when it does.
Yeah. So, yeah. And we talked, Bobby, Mike and I talked a lot about, completing your reps. You have to have your reps. You have to have your reps. I link that back to doing a model book, doing the analysis and the reflection on the individual trades that I've done, but also going back and reliving the trades that I've done, and or also simulating maybe trades I haven't done, but simulating my setups and look for those. Like, I'll go back and I'll roll back the dates on the S&P or the spiders. And then I will look for my setups. How do they work out? And it really trains my eye to basically, when I see it, I know it. And I've done it so many times, so many thousands of charts that it becomes almost like a seventh sense or a sixth sense or whatever you want to call it, that I go, oh, there's my setup. And I can, and now I'm prompted or compelled to, okay, there's my setup. If I'm following my rules, I have to take the trade. So yeah, I see there's some questions coming over on the chat box. Thank you so much, guys. We'll get to those. Matter of fact, we're gonna have a rapid fire question and answer session, towards the end. So we've got some good things started here. SH, welcome. You're probably over on Bobby's Discord channel. Welcome to this session. And then Brian, that is an absolutely fantastic question we'll get to here shortly. And so Bobby, how has your perspective on progress, trading progress, changed over the years? And how do you measure your progress now compared to when you first got started?
Do you mean progress in your learning or progress in your portfolio, would you say, or both?
Oh, is there a difference?
Well, yeah, I guess it's true. You could be, they both kind of go up together normally.
Yeah, no, but I'll ask you a question. Is there a difference? And if there is, let us know what that is. Because I think there may be a difference. And especially if you focus on one or only on one side of that equation.
Yeah. Well, I think on the learning side of things, it's that old, you don't know what you don't know type of thing. Mm-hmm. And like, perfect example, being a Can SLIM trader, I've read How to Make Money in Stocks. And the first time I read it, it was confusing, and a lot didn't make sense to me. And I understood that. And then by the second time I read it, all of a sudden now I'm like, oh, I got this, oh, now I understand this. But having not actually traded it before and having only read it maybe twice, I didn't realize there were so many little things in there that were completely going over my head. Right. And then I would read it again and I would say, oh my God, I can't believe I missed this. Or I totally forgot about this part because I haven't read it in a year. And now all of a sudden I've left this out of my trading. And the learning progression is almost like you kind of take a jump forward and then, you lose a little bit. It's just, some of that knowledge starts to teeter off out of your mind. You start focusing in other areas, and maybe something that was less important to you at the time starts to fall to the wayside. And then you kind of keep just taking those incremental steps forward. And you could be focusing on one strategy, one book, and every single time you read something like that, you're just going to kind of keep stepping up that knowledge little by little by little and progressing your knowledge. Now with your actual trading, same thing. There's times in, like I always say, there's cycles in everything, the ups and the downs and everything. And it's the same with trading. You're going to have times where you're super motivated, you're really focused, maybe your outside life to trading is dialed in, and you're going to make leaps and bounds in your trading. You're going to dial in your routine, you're going to be executing your strategy perfectly, and your portfolio is probably going to go with that as well. And then there are going to be times where you're going to make small mistakes, and you're going to maybe put some things to the side or miss a piece of your strategy that's not perfect. And with that, your portfolio might kind of pull back a little bit and, come down, and then you're kind of going to re-up again. But now every single time you keep pushing the envelope, you're just kind of taking that step up and up and up and up.
That's good.
And it happens all the time. Look, I had talked about this, talking about the people in the Discord. I had said the other day that with this market, I'm the type of person that's just not the market for me. So a lot of time I'm in cash. And I was trading a little bit more to the short side. And in the beginning, I was doing very well. I was sticking to my plan. I was staying very strategic. And then I started to get bored. And I started to just make some trades on the whims during the day, not based on the decisions I had made the night before, which is now my new concrete rule. And all of a sudden, I gave some of my gains from the year back. And I said, all right, now I saw it happening. I got to take a step back, reset, and work to make that next stride forward. So it's just everything with progression is that there's going to be those cycles. It's never in a straight line. And as you continue to progress, the more you know, the more you realize you didn't know in the past, type of thing.
Right on.
And you know what, Bobby? It's actually a win that you recognized that where you were deviating and were able to course correct so quickly. There's so many people that they don't have that element in place. So well done to be able to recognize it that quickly and change things up.
Yeah. And that's a big shout to having, community. And that's one of the reasons why I have Discord. That's one of the reasons I enjoy talking to people like you and people that have that like-minded trading, because at the end of the day, when, you sit down, and whether it's something like this or whether it's text conversation, whatever, and you think about what maybe okay, if I told these people what I did, what would they say to me? Or if they told me, like if I gave my actions to them and then they told me what they did, how would I respond to that? And like just removing yourself from that situation kind of helps you go, oh my God, what am I doing? Like this is, I got to reset. Something's wrong. Because it's very easy, despite how much you focus on mindset, there's always going to be those slip ups.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's so funny is that I've been trading my same system for a long time, and I still have these little, I don't know what to call them, mind monkeys that just kind of like mess with you, mess with me, and go, and I think, and you hit it right on the nail, is that it comes a little bit from boredom. And so that's why having a structured day is very important. And so, hey guys, if you're out there constantly looking for a new strategy or looking for a strategy you can live with, you need a system, you need a routine, check out one that's already proven. And that's what I highlight in my book, Trade Your Way to Freedom.
How about that there too?
And basically it says, retire sooner, more money, and with less fear. Co-written with my son, Brandon, and forwarded by this really cool guy named Mike Lamont. And anyway, so check that out. And those links to those books will be put into the description. And so let's, I hope we did save enough time for this. And this is the biggie. This is a huge win. And if you saw the graphic that announced this podcast, you saw this guy reaching for this grail, this holy golden grail. It looks so appetizing. And the thing it didn't totally show also was it was right over a cliff, and there was a big bear trap right below it. So let's talk about the big one, the myth that there's one perfect strategy that wins in all markets. And this is the holy grail trap. Bobby has said it best in the past. Chasing the next best thing will keep you from ever sticking with anything long enough to make it work. I don't know if you said that. Well, I think you said that. It's not about the magic system. It's about disciplined execution of a sound system. So Bobby, is there a holy grail of trading?
Not at all. Not at all. And I say this being a can slim trader, and the community of other traders in the social media world always says how, everybody in the can slim says this is the best. And I will be the first person to admit that is not the case. Even you name a strategy, that's not the case. Every market is going to be different. There's same thing we talk about, cycles up and down with progress of your trading. There is cycles in the market, and there's periods of time where the market behaves in a certain way and things are happening. Right now with this previous downtrend that we have is a different cycle than comparing to what was happening in the kind of second half of last year.
Right.
And strategies are effective in certain different types of markets. They're not effective in every single type of market. I think that's one of those things where, again, you have to look at yourself and say, like, what do you want out of the market and where do you want to execute in certain type of strategies and trends and things like that, that something is going to perform very well in one, others are going to perform very well in another. But the goal is to just know when it's your time, when that pitch is coming to you, and be able to execute. And that is what propels you forward and grows your portfolio and gets you kind of making money in the market. And then when to sit out and when to take a step back and when to lessen the amount of risk that you're putting into the market, because that is, again, how you get ahead, because you're not going down. You're just allowing your portfolio to grow and staying stagnant, grow, stay stagnant. And I think too many people look for these times where they want to be making money all the time. I just did it myself. I'm sitting here talking about it. I just did it myself, where I was trading a little bit too much on the short side and trying to play in a market that is just not the market for my strategy. And it cost me. So understanding that there is a time for different types of strategies. There's all different proven strategies, but there's no one strategy that's better than all the others. And the last thing I'll also say is, what is a great strategy for you may not be a great strategy for me. Again, we talked about this before, where like, what do you want your day to look like? What do you want out of the market? Well, there might be some guy who says, I have the best strategy in the world. It beats everything. And he wants to sit in front of his screen all day and, day trade. All right, for him, that might be great. But if I try to execute that, I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be an effective strategy. So that's the big thing. Just understanding that there's different markets, different cycles, and different environments that different strategies excel in, and some underperform. And there's also different traders and different personalities. And it's a matter of knowing what's going to fit you in terms of a strategy and what is the market and when your pitch is there. But thinking that you have the greatest thing of all time, it's eventually you'll find out the hard way that that's not the case.
Yeah. Now you said that there. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, you're a sharp guy, Bobby. It took me a real long time to learn the kind of lessons that you've already learned. So it's great to hear how far you've come in a relatively short period of time. The thing with learning how to, or when to stay out of the market, right? Like I think that it's wrong to think that a system will be win all the time, right? That there's no one perfect strategy that wins all the time. I think that a great strategy will let you know when to sit out. Like I think that you were getting at. So you would know, like, it's like having a bunch of seeds, right? Like you wouldn't just like plant a seed in the spring, plant some more in the summer, plant some more in the fall, maybe plant some more in the winter, and expect everything to work out well. Knowing which season you're in, and
Right
having
on.
a way to determine which season you're in, I think that's key for any system.
So, and yeah, that's absolutely rich, Mike. I think that, and it gets back to something. It reminds me of something I was listening to Jim Rohn about just this week, and he talks about know the season that you're in, exactly what you said, and also learn from the season that you're in, because in the winter, what happens in the winter? Things are dead or dying, all that kind of stuff. But what do? You prepare in the wintertime by simulating your trades, practicing your trades, and all that kind of stuff. And then springtime. What time is springtime? What do you do in springtime? You plant. You plant your seeds. You sow your seeds, and then the what do you do in the summertime? Well, you take care of your crop, right? You make sure that it's growing properly. And then what do you do in the fall? Yeah, harvest, this kind of thing. And the fact is that one season follows, spring follows fall, winter, fall, and then summer follows spring, and that never changes. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we see such strong seasonality in the stock market. There's a time to plant, there's a time to water, there's a time to grow, harvest, and then there's a time to sit on your hands and basically, put duct tape around your fingers and thumbs so you can't push the go button on your mouse. Also, and so yeah, that's totally awesome. So the other thing I'll throw out to you is think about this, guys, and just tell me, Dennis, you're absolutely totally wrong or out of here, but that's okay. You let me know. See, I think there is a holy grail to trading. And you look at it in the mirror the first thing every day. And that it's the talk you have with the person looking back at you that determines whether your holy grail is either tarnished, covered with basically just rust, all kind of stuff, or it is truly shiny and basically is going to promote how well you do, because it's gonna either repel you from your dreams and goals, or it's going to either repel you or compel you to come closer. So I think the holy grail is actually what's here, and what we develop over the time. That's look within, not without.
Yeah.
Wow, that was really heavy, man.
Very
insightful. Yeah.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I mean, it's so true. Where when Mike, you talk about journaling and with trading, it sometimes it's not only about journaling your trades, but journaling your stuff that's going on in your life, and things that are you super busy with the 5-month-old? Are you maybe just running around stressed with something else? Maybe you're not stressed at all. Maybe you've been having everything's going smooth, and documenting that as well. Because what happens in your mind outside of trading can bleed into your trading. And it could have a positive and it can have a negative effect. And
right on.
I think what I've noticed with some of the best traders is they have that ability to catch themselves when they see the things outside of their lives that are not trading starting to influence and affect their trading. And when they see that and they go, I got to take a step back. Maybe I got to pump the brakes a little bit. Maybe I got to remove myself from trading a little bit, because this stuff that has nothing to do with trading is affecting my mind and causing me to make poor decisions.
Spot on.
Absolutely. You ready for a little hack that we could all do to kind of dig into the stuff?
Yeah.
All right. So here it is. You could do this either with, say, a Google Doc, or even just like take some notes on your phone, so long as you're dating it. Right. So date it, do exactly what Bobby just said, writing out, whatever is going on in the day. They don't take long. Spend 2 minutes doing something like this, but track it each day. And here's the hack. You're going to take that log. You're going to put it into ChatGPT. You're going to tell ChatGPT, here's a log of my journal over the past week, month, however long it is. Analyze it. Tell me where I've been ruminating. Tell me any holes that maybe I might not see. Give me general feedback on this, and you'd be shocked at what it spits back at you.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I'm like a pen and paper type of person, but you might have made me switch, because that's pretty interesting to have be able to dissect all that.
And
hey, here's something else that it could do too. So you could take a picture, and it'll be able to read what's on your page.
Oh,
It's
that's even better.
Not 100%. If your handwriting sucks like mine, then it might struggle a little bit, but it can do that kind of stuff too. It's
Without
really
a doubt.
wild. And the fact that and for the free ChatGPT part too, it kind of blows my mind.
I like it.
Yeah. And let me blow your guys' mind. Okay, the OG is coming up. The ChatGPT stuff is, I use the mobile ChatGPT, and I basically talk directly with it, and it talks back to me. You talk about having a really awesome conversation. I'll have to demonstrate that sometime in the future, but it's linked to GBT 4.0. And so it's basically has memorized everything about me, my business, my trading style, the whole 9 yards, my YouTube channel, everywhere I am, my idea, my idea client who we've a member. And then I can go back and forth with him. We can discuss ideas. And then I can also put in a verbal, our verbal, a journal about, hey, today's trades where it's really blah, 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 blah. Go back to that the next day, add some more information to that. And then that already puts it in written form for me. And I say, okay, go analyze my last week's worth of information. Throw on top of that the spreadsheet I use to track all my trades, and say, hey, where's the strong parts? Where's the weak parts? What's going on? Anyway. Wow. A lot of fun stuff. Maybe we should do another session about that in the near future.
That's crazy.
So, hey, how about some really quick rapid fire, guys? And we've got a couple of good questions here. Let me see here. As a new trader, my biggest problem is controlling my emotions. So what we'll do to keep us on point is, what are 3 things, and I'm asking both of you, what are 3 things you could do or have done in the past to control your emotions?
Well, you're not getting off the hook that easy, Dennis.
I know. So go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing, which I'm a huge proponent of, is meditation. It may seem, and I know to some people, like being kind of like stupid, but I'm telling you, you sit there in silence and you just set a timer, and there's apps that you can do it. And it makes you so much more aware of kind of what goes on in your head. I think too many people think it's about just letting your mind go blank. It's not. It's about becoming what is aware and going on inside your head. And I've seen a huge increase in my understanding of like catching myself with what I'm thinking through that. Number 2 would be some sort of physical activity, whether it's lifting weights, whether it's playing a sport, whatever it may be. My mind is always much clearer when I'm more active. And there's times where my wife will turn to me and look at me and go, you need to go do something because you're getting crazy. Yep. And the last thing, it kind of ties in, and is just the journaling aspect of it is, putting those thoughts out there. And as you start to journal, I've noticed that I'll see, like, I didn't even think about this, how I felt like at this point in the day, and getting those reps of experiencing your emotions throughout the day by reliving them and writing them back out. And then that all just prepares you for, getting better at being aware of your emotions.
Cool. Mike?
Yeah.
If you don't have 3, give me at least a couple.
Yeah, no, I've got it. Yeah. So the first, I would say, is your environment. Very similar to how Bobby was saying with meditation. Our environment matters a lot. It's more than just the four walls around us. It's also the four walls of our mind too. So whatever we're watching, reading, listening to, those kind of things will influence us. So you want to make sure that you have a great environment. If you've got mentorship that's a part of that too, right? That I think that's something that cannot be understated. If you're able to find yourself somebody that's been where you want to be, and you're able to go and learn from that person, I think that's one of the biggest time hacks there is when it comes to trading. Putting in the reps, that's very important too. We spoke a little bit about that earlier, though, where you would go and if you are using charts, or even if you're not using charts, even if you're just fundamentally based, let's say, you could still find the kinds of things that you want, whatever is going to trigger you to put your money into the market. Study that, and so that way, when history repeats itself, you're ready to take advantage. And also, as far as when it comes to trading emotionally, I think that a lot of people, it's not that you lack discipline. It's not, most people don't lack discipline. Most people don't lack even the knowledge. Well, what people lack is structure, which goes back to one of the points that was made earlier, with treating your trading like a business, having an actual business plan laid out that says that, okay, here's what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, and why I'm going to do it, how much risk I'm going to take, sizing, all that kind of stuff. And to take the time to sit there and write it out, because when you write it out, it forces you to think through these kind of problems.
Yeah.
And that's my advice to somebody that's getting involved.
I like it, guys. Okay, let me add my 3, and I'll add 3.5 just on top. Is one, switch from a compulsive impulsive type of trading to where you trade a mechanical system. That's basically I can identify precisely trading ranges that you want to be trading in, and identify targets and all that kind of stuff. So then you have something that is not based on just opinion, but you have something concrete you can base your trades off of too. Is a fitness. Bobby mentioned it. It was so funny. My wife kicked me out of the house last Saturday because I missed my Friday workout. And she goes, "You need to go do your sprints, man." And so, yeah, and I run the hills here in Makakilo, and I do 8 sprints while I'm doing my 3-mile run. And it keeps me fresh, and it rejuvenates me. And when you get all those endorphins and all the stuff popping in your head, it just breaks open all kinds of new ideas, new thoughts. Reviewing your trades. Reflect and review, and then the last thing is hours of trading. Is come face to face with the fact that the market was designed to make you emotional. Back in the early 1900s, I was not around, but back in the early 1900s, that the bucket shops, the brokerage companies, brokerage houses started installing the old ticker tape machine. And what they found is it would go tick, 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 and print out the real live time. It's like live quotes to us today. If you're not familiar with a ticker tape machine. And what the bucket shops found was that when they installed the ticker tape machine, it increased the amount of trading, speculative trading, that took place. And therefore it increased the since 90% of the traders basically are wired to fail, it increased the amount of money the broker shops were taking in. And shortly after that, they distributed it to all the bucket shops across the United States. Well, guess what? The current financial networks and all that kind of stuff, they're trying to stimulate that same emotion. So click it off, turn it off, and I only trade after hours, because after hours, there's no, my emotions go on a scale to go way down, that way, which is good. So that's good. So what are 3 things? And let's see, let me get back here. Hope you guys are 2. Okay. There's one. Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that. Tips on developing a routine. If somebody could only do 3 things of a routine, what would be your advice to them? The 3 major things they could do for a routine.
I break my routine down into a daily and a weekend. And if you only can do 3 things, chances are you're probably pressed for time. So make the majority of your routine over the weekend. Make that where you're really, really looking for a lot of your stock ideas, where you're analyzing the overall market trend. Same thing, the market's closed, the emotions removed. You get a little more of a broader, higher level view of what's going on. You're not kind of tied up in the big ups and the big downs of a single day, and you can look at things more objectively. So I think one thing is make the weekend a big piece of your routine, and that's where the majority of your work is. And for the way that I trade, it's pretty simple. Look at the environment that I'm in. Right. Have a way to understand the type of environment that you're in. So with CAN SLIM, it's looking at the indices and kind of the technicals of the market. Find a criteria of a stock that you're looking for and search for those stocks. And then going to kind of what you just said, Dennis, is make a plan on those stocks, on where you're going to buy, how much you're going to buy, where you're going to sell on the upside, where you're going to sell on the downside.
Uh-oh, Bobby froze. Hope he'll be right back. Mike, can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, I can hear you. So, hey, I actually paused at a good point because I think that was. Oh, Bobby, you're back?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, cool. So, anything to add?
I don't know what you guys heard, but basically I was saying that 3 things. Look at the environment that you're in and understand that. Look for stock ideas and then develop a plan on how you're going to trade those stock ideas all after hours, where you're going to buy, where you're going to sell, and then make all those decisions. And then, like Dennis, like you said, once you have those decisions, step back.
Cool.
Perfect.
Mike?
Yeah. So to that, I'd add, first, figure out where you're at in your journey. Are you somebody that's brand new? Are you somebody that's seasoned? Are you somewhere in between? Because your next step will vary depending on where you're at. Somebody that's brand new, you probably want to dedicate more time and effort to learning the craft. And that means reading books. It might mean taking some courses and focusing your effort there. The third thing I would say is, if you're looking at what you're going to do for your routine, figure out what parts you might want to consider outsourcing. So, for example, you may want to outsource your research. All right, like Dennis, I know that you outsource a lot of your research to IBD. So the screening and which stocks am I going to trade, that part's already done. So you don't need to necessarily go out and hunt for your own stuff. You just need to be able to trust the source of where you're getting the stuff from.
Right on.
Journaling, if journaling's a pain in the neck, then maybe you want to get some software that might be able to help you with that. And so figure out where you're at, figure out what you need to learn, and then figure out, well, what can be outsourced. And I think that that's a great way to save yourself some time.
I love it. So yeah, Bobby, you can see I've got my IBD hat on today.
Yes.
I wore that in honor of you, man. Let me tell you. No.
Love it.
So yeah, my 2 things is, one is understand the difference between a system and a strategy. I built my system that basically my system doesn't change regardless of the strategy I trade. And I won't get into a lot of depth on that, but basically, and my system is very simple. It basically is based on basically 5 pillars, or actually 6 pillars, but the 4 major pillars as far as developing a routine. I know exactly what I'm going to trade, identify what I'm going to trade. I know when I'm going to enter, and when, where, why, and how I'm going to enter, when, where, and how I'm going to exit. And I know my expectations of what's going to happen. And so that's one of the things. And like Mike said, yeah, I are farm out. I hate doing fundamental analysis, right? I do. I really, it's like, eh. However, I know the importance of it. So I utilize IBD standard for great stocks to say, okay, this is my stable of stocks I'm going to be looking at to potentially trade this week. And then from that, it generates a list. And then I look from that, the technical aspect of those stocks to come up with my best 5. And that's basically the final stable of the thoroughbreds that I will be trading. So the other part about developing a routine is develop a go-to trade. If there was one thing I know I could trade and make money on a consistent basis, what would it be? For me, it's TQQQ. And I think if you're first starting out, there's this huge universe of stocks, ETFs, all that kind of stuff, but there's so many that it's mind-boggling. So cut through the clutter and settle on one. Again, it may not be like TQQ. That's a leveraged ETF for the Qs, right? For the NASDAQ. I love that because my research has shown that TQQQ will compound, if I trade it multiple times during the year, will compound over 100% per year. So why not go with something I know is going to potentially be a huge winner year after year after year? How long does that go back? My research on that to when TQQ first became available back in the early 2000s, or around 2011, somewhere around that. And so that's my aspect. Last of and so Bobby, hopefully you can stick around for just a little bit more.
I got time. We're good.
Okay. The last of and because nobody's added anything else, but SH has a really great question. I struggle to unlearn my previous strategies. So I'm going to jump in on that one first, guys. I encourage you, SH, get the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, because they will basically help. And one, don't just read it, but basically, I would say get the book, get the audio book of it also, so you can listen. I think you get something from reading the hard copy, but also plug it in your ear. Because believe it or not, you listen 3 times faster than you read. So I can put it at 1.5 and it's going, no, that's not that bad. But as I'm listening to it, as I'm working out, as I'm running and that kind of stuff, and it really feeds my mind. And I think it adds another component to the learning aspect. But by James Clear, I'll put a link down in there in the description on where to find that book, because he talks about in that book not only the how to build fresh new beliefs and habits that will propel you towards your objectives, but also how to disassemble and destroy your failing habits. So that sounds like that's what you're after. So what about you guys? How do you get rid of the past routine?
That's a really, really tough one. Like that really is a great question, because it's you could say as much as you want that you want to forget about this and learn something new. And then it's sometimes you find yourself like starting to lean in direction towards maybe old habits or whatever it is. I think a big piece of that with trading would be when you are doing your routine, or whenever you're sitting down and you're doing something specifically in stocks, just like take a second to mentally say, all right, this is what I'm doing. I am doing this strategy and this strategy alone. I'm forgetting this old strategy, and like just actually take the time to really, focus your mind on it and make that part of your routine. Make that part of every time I sit in my stream for stocks. I'm going to take a second and I'm going to say out loud, all right, I no longer trade like this. I trade like this, and then do it. Because as I know some people think it's stupid, but that quick second to remind yourself can set you up on a better path versus not thinking about it and ignoring it and then diving in. And then next thing you know, you find yourself looking at a pattern that you said that you were never going to trade again.
So, right on. Yeah. And I want to emphasize with like big exclamation marks, guys, what Bobby just said. Speak it out loud so you can hear it. Because typically you're going to be trading alone, so nobody's going to think you're crazy for talking to yourself. But to speak it out loud, because if you just speak out what you're thinking about a particular trade, about a particular stock, that will, I think, go a long way in replacing and taking the power away from the bad habits or the bad routine that you have. So, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, and I have the benefit of standing on the shoulders of giants. So my work is having studied guys like Mark Douglas and Van Tharp, and later on going to Tony Robbins and doing an immersion workshop with him. So it's really what the Mara Mindshift Guide is, the Trading Beliefs workbook that I wrote. And so what you want to do to get past some of these older habits, older beliefs, they all need to be questioned. But so much of this stuff is running in the background, right? It's running in our subconscious. So in order to bring the subconscious to the conscious, we need to ask ourselves a few pointed questions. And so a good one to start off with is, what are my beliefs about trading?
Right.
What are my beliefs about money? Because that's closely tied. And also, what sort of beliefs do I have about myself too? Just start there and write those out. Write as many as you can. Now, we literally have hundreds of them, but set a timer. Give yourself 5 minutes even to go through each one of those and try to write as fast and furiously as you can. And then what you're going to want to do is try to ask yourself or to say, is this belief leading me to my goal, right? So you want to also figure out too, well, what are your goals here with your trading? Kind of like, well, what Bobby had mentioned earlier, where, well, we want to be to have what our goals are, make sure that we're aligned with that. And then once we know what our goal is, once we have our list of beliefs, we could start to say, well, is this belief helping me get to this goal? If it is, wonderful. If it's not, then we need to start to untangle it. Am I able to let this belief go? Am I able to change it? Some of them, it's kind of like, well, do I still believe in, the tooth fairy or whatever? Right? It's very easy to let go. Other beliefs, there might be a lot that's rooted in this belief, and you might have a little bit of difficulty letting it go. So then you would need to kind of unravel that knot a little bit more. But the Mara Mindshift Guide walks you through all those kind of exercises. So that's how I would go about changing some of these habits and beliefs.
And I think also learning how to do really good self-talk. And I had to get up from the desk just for a second, because I have this, and I hope you can see that kind of.
A little bit more. I am a wise, disciplined, profitable trader.
Yes. That is the mantra that my mentor gave me. And he said, Dennis, every morning when you get up and look at yourself in the mirror, say that. And part of the thing was to start making this a habit or a part of the routine before I could believe it. But I had to start saying it so that I could believe it. And what resulted was it grew on me, because he would say that 3 times in the mirror. First thing, say, I am a disciplined, profitable trader. Say that again 3 times. I am a disciplined, profitable trader. As I'm looking at myself in the mirror with a big smile on my face. You can't do it with a frown. You got to do it with a smile. And then at the very end of it, after saying that 3 times, and then you say, and I'm a darn good looking one too. Okay. And clearly you can see that works. Anyway, so that's another way. Learn how to make I am statements that build you up, because believe it or not, I know Mike, Bobby, but Mike and I, really promote our faith on the podcast. And I am is who God is. In the ancient script, it says, Moses would ask, God who he was. And he says, well, I am, the God that delivers. I am. And he even said, tell him I am is sending you. So anytime you interject I am into your speech, you're inviting God's power into your life. That can change the trajectory of your life, not only in trading, but your life, because how you do anything is how you do everything.
Amen.
100%.
Wow.
Preach, Dennis.
Oh, anyway, I had to share that with you guys. So, folks, that's the last of the questions. Bobby, I want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. This is a blast. I had a lot of fun. This is a lot of good conversation.
And so if you're watching the recording of this, let us know which of these 3 traps, is still lurking in your mindset. And here's a challenge. Write down your 3 trading beliefs. Write down at least 3 of your trading beliefs and ask yourself, like Mike said, ask yourself if they're helping or hurting your consistency. So if you got some value from this today's show, share the episode and give us a great rating over on Shopify and or down in the descriptions on the YouTube channel, or even on X. Let the people know on X that you really need to tune in to the Trading Truth podcast. So, Mike.
Yeah, make sure that you're following Bobby everywhere. Bobby, where are the best spots to find you? Your X, your Discord?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the 2 biggest things. X is probably where I post the most, and that's just the path, the number 2, and profit. You can find my Discord there. I am in the process. I used to do the YouTube thing, and life kind of got in the way. I am in the process of kind of bringing some YouTube stuff back and some market recaps and things like that. So you can kind of keep a lookout for that. But really, X is the easiest and best way to stay in touch with kind of what I'm doing. And, a lot of the stuff I post is kind of the conversations that we're having here. Like I always say, if you take this conversation we just had and really try to summarize it, it's mindset and discipline. If you can adapt those 2 things into anything, not only trading in your life, you're going to see a lot of growth. So, and that's the kind of way I approach everything. So
cool.
Awesome.
And so, okay, guys, we're going to wrap it up and just say where, but I'm going to end the stream right here. See ya.
See you.
Bye, everybody.